Okay, just a little bit more.
Okay, looks like we are live now. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the board meeting workshop. And I'd start off with, has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Any changes anybody would like to make to the agenda? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Thank you, Alex. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Okay, second, communications, recognition, and information. First, with regard to public comments, first I'd encourage everybody within the communications log to go and look at the public comments. And then I'd just like to bring up an item for board consideration. So it had been suggested that we should actually, within where we keep the correspondence log, we should actually go and break that down into items that are intended to be for public comments versus just sort of the more regular correspondence that we need to keep just as a matter of good governance under the Sunshine Law. And so as saying, so the idea would be if somebody had public comments that, or things they specifically wanted to be raised in public comment, if we could go and put it there, and then the board will obviously, and members of the public can then go and look out and see exactly what is in the public comments, really just to make it a bit more obvious. So does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Well, David, we did that just to model that tonight. We have an item for public comment and the correspondence log.
Right.
So
okay.
That's kind of how we pulled it out tonight.
All right, let me go. I apologize.
We didn't have any public comments.
Right, but basically the idea here would be though that if somebody has something and they know they describe it as, I wish this to be included in public comment, then and so as we have here in the in the second section, we would have specific, just as there is a section for the correspondence log, there'd be a special section for public comments, so people can be drawn specifically to those. And we'll make it clear on the website, obviously, that we're doing things like that. And anything that gets sent will be included in one of the two places. So even if you don't mark it as strictly as public comment, it will still end up in the log, in the formal log, one way or another. And so perhaps what we'll do is we can revisit that at the next meeting when this has had a chance to go and see, and we'll just go and see if we think that this is an improvement. So if that's all right, then I'll move on to board calendar.
No items of note in there from last time.
Okay, we've discussed the correspondence log again. Just encourage everybody to take a look at what is there. And e-alert notifications, John. Yep,
Sherry is going to lead this section. Sherry, you should be able to share your screen.
Were you going to use your screen, John? And I was going to walk you through.
Oh, okay. I'll share it.
Okay.
Let me log out. Hold on. All right. Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to share with you tonight something that's called the e-alert notification that families can use. They can register online on our website on the homepage. And Dr. Simpson's going to help me navigate through and to show you how to go about registering to receive those alerts. So on our home page, under register at the top of the page, you will click on register and it'll ask you for your birth date. And we're trying to figure out a way to bypass this. It means nothing, but it's part of the program. And so for now, we're just having everybody just use an example of 0405, 1975 to get past that screen. And then you will go into the registration form and complete the registration form and submit.
Do I have to complete all that, Sherry?
Nope, I've already created one for you.
Okay.
So then you'll get out of that and go into sign in at the top. And you'll use your username and password that you created in the registration.
What's the one you had me do?
Simpson 2020.
What's
So
my username?
John. John,
Lowercase?
uppercase. 2020. Okay, and then now you'll go under account at the top.
And so to be clear, Sherry, the purpose of this is so that people can get notifications of
Yes.
meetings that are upcoming. So one of the comments that that we'd received was for the last meeting, and we've had a series of meetings at relatively short notice because of the various things we were trying to organize. And one of the comments that we received was they didn't know that particular meeting was going on. And so we're just doing this just again, it's all to do with transparency, just to try to make sure that everybody is aware of all the meetings that are going on in the district. And so this is a way to actively sign in and make sure you receive that notification.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so when you go into edit account settings, oops. Okay, so this will give you your information. If you need to update your information, your email address, your name, address, whatever, you can do it here. On the left-hand side under subscriptions, it shows that he already is subscribed to the Board of Education page, but if he can go into other pages as well. So if he'll go into manage. And here are all of the school sites. So you can get updates from any school sites that you're interested in getting updates from. And then if you go under other areas, that gives you other areas of our website. So any changes, cancellations, updates, or whatever will give you an email alert to any of these subscriptions that you check off. And then you click I'm done when you are ready. You've selected everything. That gives you the list of your subscriptions. So what's going to happen now is anytime any of those areas are updated or any changes are made, you'll receive an email notification with a link, and the link will tell you where that's going to and that there's been an update. And it'll take you right to the page.
And if anybody has any problems sort of getting into this, who should they contact?
They can call me. They can contact me.
Okay, great.
We'll put together a video that'll get blasted and will get shared with people so that if anybody wants to do it, they'll have that video and then we can archive it on our YouTube site too.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
This is great. Thank you very much, Sherry. I appreciate you putting this in place. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but John, in addition to the video, but if maybe there's a one pager of like step-by-step directions that could be put on like the Facebook page or something, or sent out in like the next blast, that might be helpful for folks too.
Yep. Sure. Sherry and Kathy, can you guys work on that?
Yes.
Those things?
Yep.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, if there are no further questions about that, reports from superintendent and staff. Dr. Simpson, opening of school.
All right, just going to give a brief opening of school update and just share from a few different perspectives, and including some of the stuff from the summer. But kicked off, obviously, this has been a very unique summer as well as the start of the year. This is a picture from Miss Hilpert. You could probably see over the top of the book that all of our staff is doing what they can to try and make it as warm and welcoming and inviting of a start to the school year as they possibly can. And we're getting hearing from a lot of people that they feel that way. And we're also hearing from people that they're struggling too with their kids and with their situation with the whole online learning piece. So before school started, Jason, do you want to share about some of these slides here?
Sure. So John M. is actually going to talk a little bit about summer school.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. A little bit different being here on a Thursday night, but I like it. So here you can see the numbers of kids we had enrolled in our summer programming, which surprised me. I mean, I think we had really strong numbers. We were all virtual with our various levels. We, starting with the high school, we kind of ran two programs. We ran the traditional programming that we did through the high school. It was a good test run for Canvas instruction. And then we also did the same with the experiential learning. And you can see we started off with some decent numbers, but finished about where we normally do during the school year. And then with both Hickson and elementary, we went through the launch program through the Springfield, Missouri School District. And the numbers were much better than they've been when we've been in person. The last several years, our middle school numbers with Hickson have been on the small side. And you can see here we had over 100 kids start, and most of those kids lasted through the program. And then with the elementary programming C, we had really good numbers with those over the last several years, having numbers 350, 375, but this year we really expanded those numbers. And the way that the launch program worked, there were 3 sessions that parents could do. The first 2 sessions were kind of enrichment in nature. And then the last session was more like a boot camp, let's get ready for school year type of programming. So, for some of our kiddos, we heard from our parents early on that, it was just too much screen time, that, coming off the virtual from the spring, that they just wanted their child to have a kind of a regular summer. But we heard from some other parents that they liked it. And we had parents enrolling throughout the summer for both the middle school and elementary programming.
Thanks, John. And then in terms of professional learning this summer for teachers, I broke this up in terms of what occurred over the summer. And you've all heard about Canvas training that occurred over the summer. There was also training related to the new 6th through 8th grade mathematics resource. And then there was some ELA reading and writing continuous training that happened over the summer. All of that happened in a virtual format. And then we continued our social justice retreat training cohort this summer for our folks who were in between their first and second year in the district. And so we were able to continue that. As the school year started, we continued to offer our Canvas support. And I've shared at previous meetings some of the details around what this looked like. But then we also offered similar support for virtual teaching and learning training. And that was offered K-12 for staff, along with multiple opportunities for Q&A, optional support. And a lot of people participated in this training. And then we also offered, and you've heard about this before as well, the anti-bias, anti-racism training for all staff who were in certified positions starting this year. And we will be continuing that over the course of this school year for our certified staff, but then also looking at developing our support staff in different groups as we go throughout this year as well.
Other summer happenings, Jason mentioned the Canvas PD. Tonight, when we're done here, we're going to have Tim Brown who's going to come on here, who's been instrumental in leading our efforts with Canvas. He's going to walk you through just the interface of it and what different people are seeing on their screens. Did want to highlight, again, Jessica Haskins was one of 2 people in the United States who won this very prestigious award, and she is incredibly deserving. She's an amazing math teacher at Webster Groves High School. Consummate learner, so good for kids. Other summer happenings, and again, it's something we've talked about before. I just wanted to lift up the teachers and staff and administrators who led the charge for the March for Change that started in Ivory Crockett Park and wound up at our school system or at our central office. It was an incredible event with many courageous speakers, including Kita, who really helped inspire a lot of people. And I think, and I applaud this group of teachers who are continuing to try and keep the learning and the conversations going in the community. So that was a fantastic thing. Summer projects underway. One of the benefits of us being virtual, and not that I wouldn't want to go non-virtual right away, but one of the benefits is that our construction projects have been able to move along without interruption. Not that they were going to cease, but I think they have a little bit more space and flexibility to work without a lot of children in there. There you can see Hickson Middle School. You could see a big old hole on the on this eastern facing side of the building where some of the new rooms and the music room and some of those things are going to go here. You can see the formation of the multi-purpose room gym, the space where the academic wing is going to be, and then obviously that western and western northern facing library is gone. You can also see where the old circle was. That's a new circle driveway. Are you guys able to see my cursor when I move it, by the way? Okay.
Yes, we can, John, thanks.
Thank you. The new circle driveway here. And if you could look right here, this is actually the push out of the cafeteria, which I've been told that by October, possibly the end of the first quarter, will be able to be enclosed, which is not necessarily finished, but framed and completely enclosed, which is exciting. So kudos to Rob and Pam and just the entire team that's working on that project. Also working on these projects, remember Walker's doing all of our projects. This is the front of the Walter Ambrose Family Center. This is a pic from a couple of weeks ago. This push out here is the whole new secure vestibule area. You can see a new kind of a wavy roof, which will be more inviting than the old roof that was there. To the right is a new accessible entrance at Edgar Road, a ramp that will lead up to the entrance, which is super nice. Also some pics from Edgar Road. This is the north facing part of the building, which you could see where the main or that side entrance is, and they dug quite deep. This is where the elevator shaft will run up all 3 levels. And then over here is Bristol. And that's on the eastern facing wall there. Again, the elevator shaft running up all 3 levels. And lastly, the picture of Avery, getting the elevators done. Here's the elevator project at Avery as well. Opening day event. This is definitely one of those bummers of not being able to bring everybody together for the event at Webster Groves High School, whether it's in the gym or the auditorium. But major kudos to the teacher group and both Chris's involvement, Jason's involvement, and helping to try and create a welcoming welcome back for staff across the district. They created the Wake Up with Webster, where all the 6 days that staff were contracted before the start of the year, there would be an encouraging welcome or speech, performances by students that were emailed to all of the staff, just as like a daily thanks for being here, encouraging. David did a very nice welcome as part of that event. First days of school, again, I applaud our staff, all that they've learned, their preparation to support our kids, create as inviting as a experience and an environment as they possibly can. As you can see on the left, this is Mr. Fickner, who's a teacher at Clark. This is the space that he's created. We have a lot of staff that are, we have some staff that are at home, but we have a number of staff, the majority, that are teaching and working from their buildings. Also our community, again, rallying around the teachers and the staff, offering welcoming messages, little goodie baskets, everything to try and encourage and express gratitude and thanks for the staff and all their efforts to prepare for their kids. Again, first days of school, these are stock images, free images from Google, not from Webster Groves. And I think this accurately portrays the experience for different kids and families, to be truthful. Some students, the online learning has worked remarkably well. There is an environment in the home or wherever they are, in their child care center, in their wherever they are, where it's just working well. The internet's working fine. They have support if they need it. And then there's other spaces where this could be the child and this could be the adult, or both. And again, it is what it is, and it's our responsibility as educators and as a school system to try and continue these people on the left down the path they're on, and try and support the families and children as best we can in the online learning. As part of that, just a reminder that we are currently getting some feedback from people regarding the surveys that we're going to send out. We're sending out surveys the end of week 2, end of week 4, and then every 6 weeks thereafter. So the first round of surveys will come home next Friday, go out, I should say, to parents, to staff, as well as to upper level students to get their feedback on the first couple weeks of school. Enrollment, just first day of school enrollment. We have our official enrollment is the last Wednesday in September. And we'll get that enrollment and we'll come back to you with Dr. Coffron's projections and just kind of how they relate. But I just kind of want to give you a brief update. We did have enrollment that was up at 3 of our schools, Given, Steger, and Webster High School. Overall, our K-12 district enrollment was down 110 students from 1920. We did have approximately 250 students that went outside of our school system for the start of the year. Some of those students moved. You can see right there, public school in state. Usually those are kids that are moving from our district to someplace else. We had 23% of that 250, which is about 60 kids, that decided to, their families decided to homeschool those children. We had a homeschool out of town there. And we had about 29% of our kids, our families that elected, our students that transferred into a private school locally. 29% of that 250, I should say. And then again, public school out of state, so some kids that transferred out of state. I broke that down a little bit further just so you could see both the kids that are being homeschooled and the kids that transferred to private schools. From the homeschooling perspective, we don't have any high schoolers that are being homeschooled. And you could see the percentage of the 60 on that kind of that grade level band. So about 35% of that group is kindergarten through second grade students. So 35% being a little over 20 kids. And then you could see 3rd through 5th and then 6th through 8th. Private schools, the majority are elementary school kids that move to private schools for the start of the year. Then we had also the middle school being the next largest group, and the high school being the smallest band overall. I know I was coming up in board meetings in the past was wondering of how many kids come move out to go to a private high school, how many kids come in. It goes both ways. Some years we have more kids that go out to a private high school than come in, and other years it's vice versa. I haven't looked at how many came in at this point. I would venture to say we might have had more kids come in, because from the data down below, we only had 10 high school students, incoming freshmen, that left Webster Groves to go to a private high school. I end my portion. I'm going to turn it over to Tim here with this picture of Dr. Starks from high school. Obviously, this was pre-pandemic, as he's shaking a child's hand. And just this was, I believe, for Halloween and them dressing as heroes. I do think that our teachers and staff every day are heroes in their work with kids. They do some pretty heroic things to see kids, to support kids personally and academically. And I know that as we kind of proceed through this pandemic, which is still present, that they'll continue to show up as best we can, and we'll get better every single day in our work with kids. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim. I'm going to stop sharing so that he can share his screen. So to show you the interface of what our children and our families are seeing on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so you guys should all be able to see my screen now. John, are you able to see the Canvas screen?
I am.
Okay. So I'm just going to show you, starting off kind of on the dashboard. I'm going to show you where we started with elementary, middle, and then high school. So each grade and group started with a template. This template originated like this, and then every teacher really had the autonomy to transform this into something that they envisioned as their pages. So a lot of the kindergarten teachers transformed this into different visuals that were more reflective of the grade levels that they'd be teaching. And then we had some specific kind of do now pieces that we wanted to make sure that every page or every person had on their pages. So this is just kind of a basic view. All of the big portion of learning comes into this learn button. And what Canvas actually calls it are modules. But here they're able to open it up, and then you'll see the specific modules that kids can go through and learn. On a middle school page, it looks more like this. You're going to see a similar format, but a little bit of a different look. Same as before, we gave them the same type of expectations. One of the big expectations really right now is to make sure that all home pages have a Zoom meeting link, as well as the password in a visible spot for families and for kids, just to make it as easy as possible to get into some of these activities and lessons. And then when I go to high school, their page or pages originally started like this. So you're going to see it's a very common theme going across, but each building and each person really had the autonomy to transform this and make it the way that they felt was best for their age level and group of kids. Looking at a student's view, so this is what we see as teachers, and you're going to see that we have a lot of options on this left-hand side. The moment I go to, I'm going to move this just a little bit. The moment I go to student view, you're going to notice that a lot of those options disappeared. So we don't want to clutter up the view for kids or things that they don't really need or that are not necessary for the class. So you're going to see that depending on the teacher and the age level, their navigation is going to be quite different. And then when they click on the learn, whatever is really published for them will appear in this section. And if a teacher doesn't publish something, then it doesn't populate in this section for kids. One of the things that we've also really advised teachers to do is to make sure that they put dates in on all of these assignments, so that once a date kind of passes as an end date, it won't clutter up this page, because when you keep adding, it will just keep going on and on. And we want to make sure that that view for kids is as clean as possible. The other piece is with parents, once they create an account and get an observer code, their view will be identical to that of the student. They will have full access to see everything, but they will have no access to do anything. So they're just seen as an observer. They're not able to complete any assignments, add anything. They're not able to see any of the interaction that one kid had with another. They can only see their own child's information. And then they're also able to contact teachers if there's any complications or any issues. So from my end, that's what I got for you.
I want to applaud Tim, because Tim and Bill, most of you are aware, all of you are aware, there was and Jason for his support. There was a lot of tech issues at the national level this year. It made CNN and a lot of different, not this week, I should say, with I think everybody coming back to school. Both Zoom, both Canvas and Clever experienced some issues that are still being worked out. And so I applaud their efforts and the patience of the teachers, the students, and the families for kind of sticking with it. But it was hard. And not everybody experienced some of the outages or got knocked off Zoom, but people did. So
does anybody have any questions about what you've seen so far?
And that's the end of our presentation. So please ask anything you'd like.
Sure, thank you. Well, I will tell you that I found it useful. Thank you very much. I appreciate you showing me what's going on, and I think whilst we're doing this, I'd certainly be interested in having you come back again and sort of show us. And I suspect that there's going to be, you know, we're less than a week in and just sort of starting, and so I suspect there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to learn going forward. And so if at the next board meeting you can come back and just sort of give us just a brief update as to anything new that you found, things that are working well, any response to any feedback that you've got from parents. Certainly, I mean, the thing that I've heard, and I suspect other board members have as well, is that it's a very different experience if your child is in high school than if your child is in first grade. You know, high schoolers live, I'm being a little bit unfair, but if I say high schoolers live to be in front of a screen for 7 hours, the only downside is that it's school related. But you know, the younger children, it's very hard, and we know it's very hard on the parents as well. So obviously, as we learn things, and you know, John, if you and your team, as you learn things and about how we might manage to adapt before we're able to come back, certainly we'd appreciate hearing it.
Yeah.
Okay, if no one's got any questions, then that brings us nicely dovetails into the next thing, which is in fact metrics for reentry.
Yep. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Actually, I'm going to bring it over here.
Okay.
All right. Can you see it? That's not it though.
I could for a sec. Yes.
Okay.
Cases in web scrubs by zip code.
Yes. Now is it? You got the title slide?
Reentry metrics.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. So going to share with you a presentation regarding reentry metrics. Obviously, this is a hot topic, both internally in our office and the community, and regionally, and actually across the entire country. I was on a conference call today listening to Cooperative Strategies, who we know well, who had an epidemiologist on, and a few different school districts that were talking about reentry. I've spoken with, and really I've listened to a lot of people as somebody who's not an expert in this area, their perspectives on it. And as you can expect, opinions are varied. Opinions are varied on the topic, even among very top rated experts in epidemiology. So I'm going to go through and just kind of share a little bit of the presentation, and we'll discuss Webster Groves when we get to the end. What I wanted to do is that kind of the focus of the presentation, we've had a work group, a subgroup of superintendents. I've not been a part of that group, St. Louis County health officials, and then medical experts, including doctors, epidemiologists who've been working together to develop what would be criteria. Gating criteria is the language that is used, meaning open and closed to opportunities or transitioning between levels for local school systems. What we see that, and we've talked about this, that different states, different counties, different places develop this kind of criteria for school systems. St. Louis County has been very helpful with us with this process, but we're still kind of crafting our own. The metrics, though, are not something that at this point that are going to be like in some states, like you're told, like you have to get, your positivity rates below 3%. You have to get your cases to this level. These decisions at this point are all going to be local to Webster Groves School District, just like they are every other district. We are limited to the data that we have available, and our data largely comes from the St. Louis County Health Department. And a piece that's not a factor in our testing, but is really important, is the testing piece. The testing is an incredibly important factor. And you'll remember a couple presentations ago when I referenced the White House's, the government's reopening plan, that testing was a key factor, and getting test results back in less than 4 days was really kind of a starting point, and less than 2 days was ideal. And we're moving in a favorable direction there, but we're still not there with the testing. And obviously there's been some new developments with the CDC. So three of really the four important metrics, first of all, developed right here, are looking at daily number of new cases. This slide right here will show you, looking at the 7-day rolling average, where you want to be. You want to see, this is looking at trend data. You want to see the trends going down. So you're looking at the data on a daily basis, but you want to see trends going down. You want to see positivity rates, and really that is how many people test positive of who are tested. You want to see that data ideally under 5% is what the threshold has been created. I've had epidemiologists that have said you should look for less than 3, and I've had some that said you should look for less than 1. But the threshold right now that this subgroup has developed is less than 5% for an ideal state. And then for your rates of infection, looking at less than 1. And that R rate is how many people does a person who is a case who has COVID infect other than themselves. And so you want that to be a less than 1 number, which is pretty consistent across the country, I should say. This metric is came from the kind of the scale was adopted from this Harvard Global Health Institute. And that's, again, looking at those rolling averages and trying to get to the, obviously you want to get to the green level is where you want to be. And then it kind of shows there where you're trending if your cases match those particular levels. So the green level, 1 case per 100,000 people, on track for containment. The general strategies, monitor with testing and contact tracing program. Again, I've had the epidemiologists who I've referenced before from Georgetown that said that that's a place where you should try to get. I've also heard other epidemiologists reference the yellow level, which is bringing that case rate down to an average of less than 10 students. That are 10 people. That still is a community spread, but not at the orange level of the accelerated spread or that tipping point at those red levels. And I'll show you where we are right now with respect of all this particular data. So every single day, starting about 7 or 8 days ago, Matt Goodman, who does some work for Ed Plus, he also works in the Pattonville School District. He's fantastic with data, and he's kind of been the lead, taken the lead on the superintendent end, although he's not a superintendent at this point, with all the information, with putting together the data, with pushing out the data to us. He sends us daily. They send us daily an updated data report. And this kind of shows you where we are with those factors. So the daily new cases, looking at that 7-day average, right when this data was sent to me, which was 8/25, and it reflected the 7 prior days, we were at 17.32. So I put right there a green and an orange arrow. So we were coming back. We were green, and I'll show you kind of the trend data. We were green because our cases are trending down, which is a really good thing. Our cases are going down. We were orange because our cases still fell in that 10 to 24 range. So good that we're trending down, but we're still at that accelerated spread based on our number of cases, okay? Transmission rates, and I'll show you how this is trended, are below 1. And again, that's green. That's good. That's where we want to be. And that's a really big number. Positivity, our positivity rate is below 10. It's on the upper level of 10, but it's still in that yellow category, which is better than it had been at one point. But we've been kind of between, and you'll see a 7 to 10 for some time. And you'll see some of the other counties as well as the state. So I kind of just explained this, but why are we orange and green? This shows what the case rates have looked like since the data started, hitting St. Louis. COVID started hitting St. Louis that was reported. So you'll see that our cases are still high. We still have a high number of cases, which are these vertical lines in the mid to late July and August. The red line is showing the rolling 7-day average, which is certainly up considerably from where it was at the start of the summer. But you'll see that trend down. That's why we're heading in the right direction at this point. So this is looking at the reproduction, the infection rate, a lot of different ways you see it, the transmission rate. Again, pre-intervention, this is before we took the measures that we took in St. Louis County, the more stringent measures, health measures. So the data prior to that, the cumulative data, had every single person who was a case infecting 3.38 people. That's what the data was showing in their contact tracing. Since that point, you can see how the data has moved. It was favorable out of the gate. People were probably a little bit more taking everything a little bit more seriously. And then it shifted to the yellow. We hit that red peak late July, August. And now that the data is trending more favorably, which is where we want it to go. This is looking at that positivity rate. Again, we've been somewhere between 7 and 10 all the way throughout. And so, yeah. This is looking at the 7-day averages, that case rate. This is that orange piece of our case data. Green piece, our numbers are trending down as you look at 7-day cohorts. And you can see that trend down here, right? When you look at these 7-day averages, you see on August 12th, the 7-day average was 24. Then the 13th was 23, 19, 18, 17. You see it going down. So it's still, the number is high, but it's going in the right direction, which is a really good thing. This is looking at that age group. This is some data that I think I shared the last 14 days of data when we were talking about the early childhood program. I either shared it or I referenced it. So you could see what it looks like with different age groups, where the cases are falling per 100,000. So right now, per 100,000 people in St. Louis County, about 5 children on average between 0 and 9 are being diagnosed with COVID. Now, again, the children are least likely to show symptoms, and they are least likely to, because of that, be tested too. So their test data, that kind of lines up. But again, you'll see that the 10 to 19 is definitely a little bit higher than that. This is the data broken down to zip codes. These are the zip codes that we serve. Obviously, the 63119 is about 70%, maybe a little over 70% of our students. This is the past 14 days, this column, the number of people in these zip codes who have been diagnosed. Here's obviously the population, and then the cases per the total population in total, and then over the last 14 days. And this data is accessible online. So what I've tried to communicate to you and other people, is that we have a responsibility, like the community data, the county data, the local data is really important as it relates to COVID. But what we also have to consider is its effect on our students and our staff. So the superintendent group this past week was presented with how some different districts are tracking and communicating the data. Obviously, the tracking is pretty easy. Getting the number is pretty easy. But this is some reports that have been shared on their website. So this is in the Hamilton County Schools. You can see they present something daily that shows the number of employees who are actively have COVID, 16 at this point, active close contacts, 29, active awaiting test results, 75. So approximately 120 of their staff are not currently at school. That amounts to about 2% of their staff. And then this is looking at the kids, 10 active, 124 are close contacts. So that number at home. They also break it down to show you based on the data, like in the Hamilton County schools, some schools are closed based on that school-based data, the staff data and the student data. And that shows here those 3 schools that are closed based on their school data. This is an example from the Lincoln Public Schools. They show these 3 metrics. The number of positive cases, they do it every Thursday. They have 8, and they do a combined students and staff. They have 8 active cases. They have 45 staff that are being isolated. And really that's probably isolation and quarantine. And then 2% of the student population that was not in attendance due to an illness, COVID related or not. So for us, I think what most local school districts are looking to and we can determine what we want to do is to set, most people are looking at what are the trends showing, not setting necessarily the hard limits of all green, all that data, which we could do, but looking at that trend and then looking at all the data such as, I know in a lot of people, like was referenced in the last conversation, the younger students aren't getting it to the level of the older students. So some people are looking at that transmission rate and the younger population. So I kind of wanted to open it up to the board to discuss just the data and how to use it. We also have to look at the data of we have data as it relates to just what we're hearing from students and staff about kids engaging and what level does that factor into it. So I just kind of wanted to open it up to the board and get your thoughts related, ask any questions. What would you like me to come back and share at the next meeting? If you'd like me to set some solid numbers, I can do that. Open it up.
So John, thank you very much. I think that's good, and I appreciate you sharing what some other districts are doing as well. Let's throw it open. Any board members have questions for John at this point?
John, are you thinking about sharing the information as far as reopening? I'm guessing, is that kind of what the purpose is, or just?
What do you mean, Keita, about sharing it?
I mean, are you looking to do something similar to what like Lincoln County and the other, the Hamilton, like putting it on our website or something like that?
Yeah, I would, and again, those are school districts, so I'm not looking to like reopen or say that to reopen right now, but I think whatever we can do to be transparent with the numbers and the data, I think would be good.
I guess that's what I was referring to. I know you're not looking like to reopen next week.
Yeah.
As going in that direction, having the data available so people can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I wouldn't want to do is, I would be more, I guess I'd be more interested in having like a live data dashboard if we had firm particular metrics that we were going to use and say, okay, if we hit here and stay here, we're going to go. Because I wouldn't want to mislead people to think that was it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think.
So John, I guess I would be interested to the extent that you think you can use this data to, and you're clearly going to use this as part of the data to guide your decisions, to the extent as you go away and think about that and think about how you would use that to bring either sort of specific cohort or the entire school community back. I think that would be something I'd appreciate you sharing at the next board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Joe?
We could.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
I just had a question. So on the 0 to 10 or whatever that age range was, so we know they don't get COVID, or at least they're not getting tested because they're asymptomatic. Do we know that they don't transmit it?
No.
Okay.
No, no, we don't.
And that's what I thought. But for some reason, I thought you had said that they don't transmit. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah. I might have said that, and if I did, I was wrong. But we don't know that. It's fully possible. Yeah.
Is there discussion about regular cold and flu? I mean, it'd be interesting if the regular cold and flu season doesn't kick off as normal because we're not in school. But I know on that last piece of data, there was a number that said sick, and then you said COVID or not. So like, is there any kind of discussion as to, I don't know, how to break those numbers out? Is that a part of the consideration? Because I think anytime anybody has a scratchy throat, everybody's going, "Oh my God!"
I know.
Yes.
Haven't spoken about.
I was not on purpose.
Haven't spoken about anything like that yet. I think that is one of the, again, these are school districts or in-person learning. And so right now, anybody that may have a possible COVID-related symptom is at home, hopefully learning on a computer, So we really won't be able to collect that kind of data until we come back. Now, we could have some, we still would expect, like, if our staff are, diagnosed or close contact, especially if they're coming to school to work, or, we are collecting some of that data and information. But on our kids, we don't have that. But that's something look at tracking when we do.
Can I ask a question? Because we're a much smaller district, I noticed in the one district, there were 120 teachers out and it was 2%. I wouldn't be able to tell which of those teachers or who, I wouldn't be able to guess. But in our schools where we have, much smaller numbers of teachers in each one, you're not thinking about publishing like what percentage of teachers have COVID or things related to trends specific to Webster Groves, are you?
That would be something that we could determine to do. I wouldn't break it down to like teachers or anything like that. That's what these particular districts did, had like a staff category. And that would be, whatever we think. And I think some of it is, I think whatever we do to communicate to the public that we may not be able to operate because of the number of staff that are out. Or we may choose not to operate because the number of kids that are going to be out on quarantine, or they're suspected that they might have it, or they're symptomatic. So
I think a lot of colleges though are listing that same information as far as staff versus students.
Are they? Yeah.
Definitely
wouldn't give any personal definitely not any identifiable information or looking to even break it down by school or anything like that. Go ahead, Alex, sorry.
Yeah, no. So are we looking at the private schools in the area that are in person now and keeping an eye on that? I mean, I think obviously keeping an eye on, COVID in the area is one thing, but then also seeing how there are schools where people are going back in person and figuring out the ones that seem to be doing it right. What, I'm just curious what you guys are doing with that.
Yes, everyone is looking very closely at Lindbergh, whose lower elementary primary level students came back today. And then a lot of the school districts out in St. Charles area will open next week. And yeah, so we're all very curious, as well as the private schools. Definitely, we don't, not in community or not in network as well with some of those schools, but Webster's pretty small, so we'll hear pretty quickly of the effect on some of those schools. But those are really big. Again, I feel like our schools can do a good job of keeping our schools safe. It's what happens in public and choices people make outside. I feel like our schools will be safe, overall, as best we can do without guaranteeing anything.
Haven't some of the private schools already cut back on their in-person?
Yes. Some of the different schools have cut back on person. Some have switched to hybrid. Some have brought people in for a limited amount of time to learn the technology, and then they're going to go out. Yeah, they have.
Any other questions at this point?
Yeah, sorry. And I'm
Go ahead.
taking the dog next door.
No, that's fine.
Yep. So I was curious, over what period of time are we looking at data? And is that something you'll know more about as it gets, closer to September and after September?
I'll present that in my, kind of per David's suggestion. We'll work to put together process thinking data that we would use to make that determination and include that. I think it's for me to advocate for that, there would have to be a consistent and reasonable trend below the desirable threshold, and not just because what we see and our data gets adjusted as data gets adjusted in the database. So some days we'll get a data on this date or the 7-day average. This was the number. And then the following week or the following day, the data shifts. So I would have to be something that had a reasonable level of time, and also not just to ensure that those rates are where they need to be, but we would also have to be very thoughtful and considerate of the effect of any kind of transition on our staff and families. Again, because we're like a big aircraft carrier, and us to move completely in that direction, you know, we'd have staff that have to maybe be thinking through childcare situations. You know, if the district their kids are in are still virtual, there'd be a lot of programmatic things. So it couldn't be a quick pivot. Couldn't be like the spring when we were like, okay, we're out. So.
Well, I appreciate the thoughtfulness you're putting forward into this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions in terms of information that you would like to see in terms of this? Okay.
I mean, I
Go
kind
ahead.
of like,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say I kind of like the transparency. I know some people can get fixated on numbers, so you do have to be thoughtful about how much information you put out there. But and then for myself, too many numbers and my eyes start crossing. So, but I find it personally helpful. Like you said, if we know that we can't go back because 2% of our teachers are out, then it kind of helps me deal with that a bit more.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the idea of at least a simple something, kind of keeping everybody up to date. This is why we're doing this, you know, that kind of thing. I like that idea.
Okay.
I just want to echo, I agree with that. I think having an easy place for, you know, there are those of us that are on the New York Times digging into the county data every day in lots of different places, right? But then there's those people that don't dig into that level of data. If there's a snapshot where they can go get at least some data about our local area on our website, I think that's important to help them understand the decisions that we're making.
Thank you.
Okay. If no one's got any other questions, then Alive and Well and Community, John Thomas.
Hello again. John's going to put up a slide that's going to support the information I share with you. But one of the key components, one of the key aspects of our return to school plan is focusing on the social emotional well-being of our kids. And we kind of talked a little bit about it in the past couple months in meetings in different places that, you know, prior to the pandemic, 60 to 70% of individuals have experienced some type of trauma in their lifetime, and that as we've endured this and tried to handle this pandemic, those numbers are probably going to be much greater as we come on the other side of it. So as we looked at different ways to support that social emotional component with our students, we kind of landed on the trauma piece. And as we looked at different ways to do that, we decided to partner with Alive and Well communities. And some of you are probably familiar with Alive and Well communities. They are probably the preeminent trainers in this area throughout the St. Louis region. They've worked with a number of school districts and something like 40 schools, and they offer different levels of support to schools. They also were part of a couple of years ago, there was a Missouri model for trauma-informed schools that rolled out, and they were instrumental in developing that. And then they're also, they work throughout the state on. Last week, I participated in a DESE-sponsored workshop for counselors on the return to school, and it was facilitated by Alive and Well. So they are definitely experts in this area, and as we vetted them, we heard nothing but great things from our neighboring school districts that have worked with them. So again, they support schools in different ways. They can come in and just do some, basic training with schools, or they can do some really intense work to try to transform that school. So we decided to partner with them in a way that is really going to provide in-depth, meaningful trauma training for our entire school community. And there's going to be different levels of that training. Granted that you approve the contract tonight, we'll be able to start working on a general rollout of training that all of our staff will receive in trauma to establish that baseline of what trauma is and how it impacts our students and ourselves and so on. And then each building, in addition to that, will develop a trauma team consisting of an administrator, counselor, social worker, teachers, just folks who can be key leaders in the building. And then with the help of Alive and Well, they will develop a plan that's specific to the needs of the students and that school community. And then initially that will be 24 hours of just really in-depth, intense, extensive trauma training where they develop that plan. And then monthly, Alive and Well will come into the building and work with that trauma team to further hone that plan, implement that plan, and so on. And they structure this on the Missouri model of trauma-informed schools. And so with the plan for that building will kind of determine the additional type of support that Alive and Well will do with that school. For instance, they may come in and do assessments to take the temperature of what's going on in that school, provide different levels of coaching for various staff members, do classroom observations, provide specific training to the entire staff in different areas. And so they'll do that for 2 years. And then on top of that, they'll do additional work with our counselors and social workers, who a lot of times are the frontline workers with kids dealing with trauma and mental health issues. So again, this is all based on the Missouri model, which John, if you could scroll down, thank you. There are different stages to the Missouri model. It starts with being trauma aware, just having that basic information and being informed of what trauma is. I feel we're already there. Several years ago, there were members throughout the school district who participated in a big trauma conference that was in town, and some of our schools have already started that journey of trauma awareness. And then you kind of go through these other stages where you start to build that plan and you explore the principles of what trauma care is all about. And then you become trauma responsive, where you're actually changing the practices and policies for the school and for the district. And then the last stage is being trauma informed. And that's where it's just part of your everyday culture. It's a part of everything that you do. You're actually seeing the results of your plan. So Alive and Well is going to work with us the first 2 years and get us off to a great kickstart with that. But really, it's a 3 to 5 year journey that we'll be on. And in terms of the principles for trauma-informed care, there are 6 of them. They deal with making sure that our students are feeling safe, both physically and emotionally, that we're fostering genuine relationships with our children, that we're maximizing choice, that we're really collaborating with making meaningful decisions that help students, and that we're empowering children to self-advocate for themselves and encouraging self-efficacy. But blended within all of those is equity. Equity is key to all of these principles and is really essential to everything that they do. So one of the other things that convinced us to go to Alive and Well is this equity piece. We thought it really married well, blended well with a lot of the other initiatives that we've been doing and are doing with our school district. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you all may have.
Questions?
I do.
Christine.
Joe and I listened to the Alive and Well group present at a district PLC, and I've heard them in the past at a state event as well. And so I just really appreciate that we're bringing this to our district, and I think we're doing it at the right time as well. And I just wanted to have you reiterate, it starts this August?
Yeah, we'll probably be kicking it off in September with the training with staff, and then the school teams. We're getting that really intense kickoff training.
Or August or September is what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a key feature of what I was hearing too is that not only in a trauma-informed school district do you have kids who feel cared for, and that there's a genuine relationships between kids and teachers, but that the teachers feel cared for too. Is that something that I'm right about?
Yeah, yeah. You know, with trauma, there's something called secondary trauma, where as staff members, we take on some of the trauma that our children are experiencing. So like you said, a key component to all of this is also self-care for staff. And, you know, with some of the changes that will be coming with you know, moving kids and moving staff, I'm sure that will be a focus in some of our buildings, is that staff self-care.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing that with us. And you know, again, I'd be interested. I think this is something we certainly don't need to hear every board meeting, but I think that updates to the board periodically would be appreciated.
Yeah, most
So
definitely. I'll be happy to do that. Yeah, we're real excited about working with Alive and Well.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just say I think that would be great.
And David, there's a motion to approve the contract, and Doug has reviewed the contract.
Okay, all right. I apologize. I didn't.
That's okay.
Let me just dig in there. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. Apologies. Hang on, give me a second here.
Can I just make a motion? We approve the contract with Alive and Well.
Sure. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that passes. All right. Ms. Frazier.
Good evening.
And good evening to you too.
In the packet, you can see there is a resolution for the purchase of the 0.344 acres that the district entered into a contract with MoDOT for in June. The closing is set for next week on September the 2nd. The resolution states that Dr. Simpson or I can sign all of the closing documents. There is one document though, this easement that is included in your packet, that needs to be approved by the board and then signed by the board president. So that is basically a utility easement, a water pipe easement to Missouri American Water, so they can go on the property, make any repairs or emplacements or any of those things that they need to do. The signing of that document is a requirement of MoDOT before they would sell us the property. So I would ask that the board approve those two documents. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions from anybody? Okay. All right, if there are no questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the purchase.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the purchase of approximately 0.344 acres located at Hickson Middle School and the easement for water pipe deed.
And second. Thank you, Alex. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have the consent agenda. I'll entertain consent agenda motion, please.
I can make a motion to approve consent items 4.02, the minutes, 4.03, the agreement with disbursement review, 4.04, MOU Great Circle, 4.05 preliminary bus routes, 4.06 the tuition rate for 2020-21, 4.07 the personnel report, 4.08 check registers, and 4.09 the 2019 annual Secretary of the Board report.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alan. All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Okay, I'll now entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
Motion to recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Keita. And roll call vote, please.
Mr. Addison,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Ms. Clendenin,
Yes.
Ms. Keller,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes.
Okay, we are recessed into executive session.